Hey guys, tonight we're going somewhere very old, very crumbly, and very mildly cursed. Welcome to a story so slow, so filled with confusing riddles and vaguely damp ruins. You'll be asleep before the ancient gods can throw a thunderbolt. You find yourself standing at the edge of a forgotten trail in a forgotten part of a forgotten peninsula, because that's just how your vacations go now. The air smells like time, damp stone, and whatever lived in your sandals during the boat ride. You didn't mean to find a temple, you were looking for figs. Instead, you stumbled across a half-buried stairway, moss growing between the marble steps, as if nature herself had gently tried to erase history with a green, fuzzy eraser. And then there it is, a circular ruin, columns leaning like tired old men, and in the center, half hidden in vines and dust, a headless statue. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, leave a comment with your current time and location. I want to know how far this bedtime journey reaches. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You approach the statue. It's seated, robed in stone, missing its head, arms, and most of its dignity. Still it radiates a strange calm. The base is engraved, badly weathered, but you make out something about Epheron, oracle of no mouth, knower of all but faces. So, a blind, headless prophet? That's niche. You stare for a bit longer than you'd admit at parties, and then it happens. A voice. Not booming, not spooky, more like someone muttering into a seashell from the next room. It whispers, "The sea will turn green when the goat sneezes." Yeah, that's it. You blink, there's no one around, no wind. Not even a dramatic thunderclap. Just the gentle susurration of bees, and a statue that somehow delivers cryptic weather forecasts without a mouth, brain, or any working vocal cords. Some say it's a cursed artifact of Apollo. Others claim it was a failed art project by a sculptor who ran out of marble halfway through. Historians? Oh, they're still arguing whether this even qualifies as an oracle or just a weirdly placed garden gnome with delusions of grandeur. You take a seat beside it. The stone is warm from the sun, which feels nice on your tired legs. You haven't slept well in days. Visions of labyrinths and philosophical hedgehogs keep waking you up. But this, somehow, feels peaceful. You lean back, close your eyes for a second, and whisper, "What should I do next?" The statue replies, "Do not trust the eel with 3 shadows. That clears things up." You open your eyes and notice a trail of olive pits leading out the side of the temple. They weren't there before. Naturally, you follow them. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? It's not like a headless statue whispering nonsense ever led anyone into trouble before. Just ask Odysseus. Wait, don't. He'd probably talk your ear off. As you walk, the sun begins to lower in the sky, casting everything in that very flattering golden hour light that makes even ruined temples look Instagram-worthy. You pass a fig tree buzzing with lazy wasps, a rock that suspiciously resembles a turtle in a helmet, and eventually reach a crossroads marked by an old olive press. It's leaking slightly, as if someone tried to use it recently and forgot that olives aren't seasonal right now. The whisper follows you. One head, 2 voices, no answers. You turn around, but again, nothing. Just the dry chirping of cicadas and the heavy smell of sagebrush in the warm air. You sit on a flat stone and think, you're not a hero, you're not cursed, you're not even on a quest. You just wandered here. Maybe that's the point. Not all legends start with a prophecy and a dead king. Some begin with misread directions and very questionable footwear. There's a saying among certain goat herders in the region that when the oracle without a face calls your name, you must keep walking or you'll become part of the temple. No one knows if that means metaphorically like becoming obsessed with dusty ruins or literally like turning into a slightly confused column. Either way, you're not sticking around. You rise. The olive pit trail gleams faintly in the dimming. Sun like a breadcrumb path left by a particularly greasy fairy tale character. You follow. The air grows cooler. A breeze carries the scent of brine and ancient fish. Somewhere far off, a goat sneezes. You shiver. You're not sure if it's prophecy or hay fever, but either way, you press on. The path bends down toward a peninsula you'd swear wasn't there earlier, and the voice, softer now like it's smiling without a mouth, says, "Seek the cursed peninsula." There, the weather speaks before the priests. You sigh. Of course it does. That makes total sense. You shift your pack, brush off a bug, and step forward into the wind, your sandals making soft, crunching sounds in the dust. The sky deepens to the color of old wine. You don't know what's ahead, but at least it'll be interesting. Or confusing. Possibly both, and somewhere behind you, in the crumbling silence of the old temple, the headless statue smiles. Or at least, you think, it does. The peninsula stretches before you like an outstretched hand, knobbly, sea-worn, and entirely suspicious. You follow the path because honestly, what else are you going to do? Turn back? You tried that once and somehow ended up even closer to the oracle's statue, which is not the kind of thing you argue with. Your sandals crunch over dry soil as the wind picks up. The sea is strangely still, like it's holding its breath. The scent of salt and old myths tickles your nose. You pass a stone marker shaped like a screaming dolphin, which is either decorative or terrifying, possibly both. There's a bit of moss, growing on it in a shape that looks disturbingly like eyebrows. You reach a little coastal village, or rather, the memory of one. The homes are sun-bleached, crumbling. Roofs sag like exhausted donkeys. An old man naps under a fig tree, clutching a lyre missing half its strings. He snores like a bagpipe full of bees. You step quietly, not wanting to disturb the buzzing harmony of his nap, and follow a faded mosaic path into what must have once been the village square. There's a broken fountain in the middle, with water trickling out like it's embarrassed to be trying. On the wall, scrawled in ancient, sun-faded letters, "Here." The winds whisper warnings louder than men. You mutter something about ancient graffiti artists and sit by the fountain. A soft breeze nudges your ear, and you hear it again. That same voice from the oracle. Still quiet, still smug. He wears the crown of salt and regrets. Cool. Love that for me, you think? You lie back and let the stone beneath you cool your spine. The sky has turned a hazy lavender, and the sea reflects it like an ancient mirror that hasn't been dusted since the Trojan War. That's when the footsteps begin. Not boots, not sandals, not even hooves. Just flops. Like someone walking in wet linen slippers. You glance up, nobody. But the flops keep coming steady and rhythmic, as if time itself were trying to catch up with you. Eventually a figure appears at the edge of the square. He's tall, gaunt, and wearing what could generously be called a robe and less generously be called a tablecloth. Seaweed clings to his head. His crown is made of driftwood and bleached bone, and his eyes, well, he doesn't really have eyes, just two deep shadows that twitch slightly when he turns. He lifts a long wooden spoon, his royal scepter, and points it directly at you. You,
followed the headless words, he rasps. Now you must taste the truth soup. And yes, you do consider running, but you're also hungry. He beckons you toward a half-collapsed hut where a large cauldron bubbles over a fire of old timbrels
and olive pits. The smell is, intriguing. Kind of like seawater, regret, and maybe fennel. He ladles out a bowl, hands it to you with trembling fingers, and whispers, "Drink and remember." You sip, and suddenly you're not there anymore. You're standing in a grand hall echoing with chants. Robed priests wave incense while trying very hard not to trip on their own hems. At the center, a huge bronze head floats in a glass bowl, lips moving slowly, eyes closed. This was the original oracle, the real one. It used to be attached to a person back before oracles got trendy. They removed the body because, according to the temple records, it was always fidgeting. The head was easier to store, easier to anoint, and frankly, less dramatic. Every spring, pilgrims gathered to hear its seasonal riddles, like, when the pine cone falls thrice, beware the sheep, or the classic, she who wears 2 sandals on 1 foot shall inherit the fish. Did any of it make sense? Not really, but it gave people something to talk about in the bathhouses. You blink, and you're back at the ruined hut. The crownless soup king is nodding, as if you just confirmed something very important. He pats your shoulder, gets a bit of fish broth on your tunic, and mumbles, "The memory has chosen you." Awesome. You've officially been memory chosen, whatever that means. But here's where it gets weird. Yes, weirder. The man leads you to a narrow crevice between 2 boulders behind the hut. Inside, stairs, stone, ancient, spiraling down into cold blackness. You descend. The air grows colder, damper and full of the smell of pickled onions and forgotten birthdays. You light a torch from a wall sconce that's definitely not up to modern safety standards and keep going. Eventually you reach a round chamber filled with shelves. On the shelves, dozens of identical bronze heads, all frowning, all whispering nonsense. Turn left at the goat. Rain is soup that forgot its spoon. Tomorrow is just a lazy yesterday. You look around, suddenly understanding something, half awake and half terrifying. This was a backup storage vault. The ancients made too many oracles, mass-produced prophecies. It was the world's first spiritual startup bubble, and it burst. Historians still argue whether this was a sacred practice or just a very ambitious tax scam. You step closer to the oldest head, marked with golden inlay and smelling faintly of mint. It says, "The headless one still wanders. Find his path and you will lose your own." Then it stops, just like that. You set the torch back, climb the stairs in silence, and emerge under a moonlit sky that feels too big for your body. The Soup King is gone. The fire is out. The village is quieter somehow. You hear nothing now, not even the sea, just the wind carrying the riddle of 1,000 disconnected mouths. You tighten your pack, turn back toward the peninsula's tip, and whisper to yourself, "I have no idea what I'm doing." But then again, you're in ancient Greece. That's basically the national motto, and with that you walk onward. The path curls like an indecisive snake along the coast, hugging the cliffs with all the affection of a bored lover. Your legs ache, your sandals are starting to sound wet, even though there's no water in sight, and you're seriously starting to consider negotiating with a sphinx for a ride. Ahead, the landscape shifts. The ruins give way to gnarled olive trees, ancient and twisted, like they've been listening to local gossip for 5 centuries and still haven't forgiven anyone. Somewhere nearby, a goat bleats with the same emotional tone as someone reading bad Yelp reviews aloud. You pass under a crude wooden archway, two upright logs lashed together with fraying rope. A faded sign swings in the breeze. It reads, "Welcome to the Temple of the Leftovers." This is not encouraging. Inside the temple is underwhelming. Half of it is rubble. The other half is just slightly more organized rubble. Votive offerings lie in cracked ceramic bowls, wilted herbs, broken teeth, and, oddly, what appears to be a single woolen sock. A woman in saffron robes sits beside a low altar, calmly feeding raisins to a crow. She doesn't look surprised to see you, just disappointed in a very familiar way, like a teacher who already knows you didn't do the reading. "You're early," she says, even though you're pretty sure you're centuries late. "I was told to follow the Headless oracle," you offer, as if that's a reasonable sentence. She nods, chewing a raisin herself. "Ah, yes, he went mad in this very spot. Claimed he saw time itself wearing sandals made of snakes and playing dice with an eel."
Okay. She waves a hand, and behind her, a mural shimmers to life, painted directly on the temple wall, its colors impossibly vivid. It shows a tall man with no head, walking through a garden of clocks. Birds fly backward, trees are on fire, but
in a sad, poetic way. This was the oracle before he lost his head, literally, metaphorically, perhaps spiritually. It happened during the Delphic synchronization crisis, a real historical event that historians absolutely still argue about. Basically, two rival temples tried to issue simultaneous prophecies. One claimed a great shadow shall fall. The other said everything will be fine. Naturally, people panicked. You can't just mix and match cosmic doom and gentle reassurance. That's how you get philosophical indigestion. The oracle, frustrated by the contradiction and perhaps the temple's lack of decent snacks, walked into the sea. When he returned days later, he was headless. No wound, no blood, just no head. And he talked louder after that. It said his prophecies grew sharper, clearer, more unsettling. People travelled from across the Mediterranean just to hear what his neck had to say. Some brought gifts, some brought questions. One man brought an entire goat dressed in pearls and was very offended when it was rejected. But after a while, the
oracle disappeared again, and the world moved on. Until now. The woman gestures for you to follow her through a stone archway, where a spiral staircase winds down. Again, so many spiral staircases.
At this point, your calves are in a relationship with gravity. You descend into a chamber lit only by shafts of sunlight filtering through cracks in the ceiling. In the center, a table made of sea-polished marble. Upon it, a map. The woman leans over it, pointing with her raisin sticky finger. This is his path. He always walks in circles. Each time, the circle grows wider. You're here. She taps a small peninsula that looks suspiciously like a sandal print. And he is nearly complete. Complete? She sighs, like this is obvious. When he finishes his spiral, the world resets. Time loops. Historians forget everything except how much they hate each other. You study the map. Tiny annotations mark his previous appearances. Athens, Lesbos, a bakery in Rhodes, a children's puppet show in Crete that ended in inexplicable weeping. According to the woman, the oracle never speaks the same message twice, but he does always pause near statues of himself. There's one more left on the island of Carpathos, shaped like a leaning man about to sneeze. She hands you a tiny compass carved from goat horn. "It won't point north," she says, "but it'll point weird, and weird is good." You take it. The needle spins once, then settles toward the sea. The woman whispers, "Beware the fisherman. They've been listening to him too long." Great. Brainwashed fisherman. That's exactly what you needed on your quest of riddles and cranial absence. You thank her, sort of, and climb out into the afternoon light. The sun is lowering, turning the sea into a molten sheet of bronze. You see a small skiff bobbing at the nearby dock. No oars, no sail, just waiting. You climb in. The compass needle wobbles and snaps westward. The boat moves, not quickly, but purposefully, as if it remembers something you don't. The sea hums beneath you. The clouds stretch, thin and gold. Somewhere in the distance, a chorus of gulls cackle like drunk philosophers, arguing about socks. And, just as your eyes begin to close in the lull of the waves, you remember something the woman said. He walks in circles, but the center is always moving, whatever that means, and off you go, adrift, alone, but with purpose. Sort of like a souvlaki skewer in a vegetarian symposium, the water gets darker, and the voice returns. It begins as a whisper, as usual, dry, rustling, like paper being folded underwater. You jolt awake, neck stiff, curled in the bottom of the boat like laundry. The compass sits beside you, its needle now spinning in tiny, furious circles. The air has changed. It's thicker. It smells like copper and time and possibly regret. You drift into a narrow inlet where the cliffs rise on either side like two grumpy elders not speaking to each other. A village perches above, clinging to the rock like it knows it's not supposed to be there. The buildings are squat, pale, and somehow blurry, as if memory itself built them in a hurry and forgot to finish. You dock your skiff beside a weathered post carved with tiny names, each etched and crossed out, one by one. Some of the names are your own. You don't remember writing them. Up the hill you go, where villagers gather in a circle around something. They part silently as you approach. No greetings. No, "Hey, nice sandals." Just quiet, watchful faces, and in the center, a statue. No head, no plaque, just a familiar tilt of the shoulders. The oracle again. Only this time, someone has placed a fishing net over its shoulders like a cloak, and someone else has tucked wildflowers into the net. It's a shrine, a warning, or maybe just the best costume anyone here could come up with. And old man with teal robes and fish scales in his beard beckons you into a nearby hut. Inside, everything is damp, walls, floor, probably your soul by now. He points to a small clay bowl filled with salt water and whispers, "He speaks here. Sometimes. On Wednesdays. Of course. Wednesdays." He hands you a dried fig and lights a crooked candle. "We've kept his last message," he says, shuffling to a shelf and pulling down a scroll so old it looks like it might sue you for touching it. "We thought it was nonsense, but then the goat started walking backward." He unrolls it slowly. The message reads, "The mirror will lie, the voice will split, the sandals will rot before the wave returns." Not helpful, but unsettling in that oddly satisfying fortune cookie way. You stare at the writing. It's in Greek, but it feels like it's in your own handwriting. The fisherman sees your expression. "You're not the first," he says. "Others came, historians, poets. A man who insisted he was a reincarnated fennel bulb. He tells you of one, a Roman historian who tried to chronicle the Headless oracle's movements, only to disappear after claiming the statue spoke to him in the voice of his grandmother. When they found his notes, all they said was, 'The center is the echo, still.'
No one here really talks about the oracle.
They live beside his statue, eat beside it, raise their children in its shadow, but treat it like a roommate who might explode if asked to pay rent. And then you ask the wrong question. What happens if I touch it? Every face in the hut tightens, like a curtain being drawn too fast. The old man doesn't stop you, but he doesn't look at you either. You step outside and return to the statue. The villagers scatter. The sun is almost gone now, dipping behind the cliff like it's embarrassed. You reach out and place your hand on the statue's shoulder. At first, nothing. Then sound, deep and low, not from the statue, but from beneath it. Like a horn underwater. Like the earth itself clearing its throat. The ground pulses once, then a voice, not through ears, but directly in your chest. Like when you think of an embarrassing moment from middle school and feel it physically. You
are not the first, it says, but you may be the last. Suddenly you're somewhere else.
It's hard to say. You're still standing there, hand on stone, but around you everything has shifted. The village is empty, the ocean is gone, the sky is a spiral of bronze and black, like a fresco being slowly stirred. A headless figure stands in front of you, not statue, but flesh. Its body radiates heat and wind and the scent of crushed pomegranates. Where its head should be, nothing. Just a blur, a suggestion of thought. You seek endings, it says, in a voice that now echoes, in 3 tones, male, female, and something like the wind through teeth. You try to speak, but your mouth isn't quite under your control anymore. When the head returns, the loop breaks, the oracle says. The center cannot hold unless it dances, which is about as clear as instructions from IKEA. Before you can respond, it lifts a hand, long fingers, glowing faintly, and presses it to your chest. A shock. Not painful, just heavy, like carrying a very old book full of stories no one should remember. Then everything folds back in. The sky is normal again. The statue is silent. The villagers are back, going about their lives, pretending they didn't. Just collectively glitch out of reality. But now in your hand you hold something new. A small bronze key in the shape of an eye. No one tells you what it opens, but the old fisherman waves you over and says, "You'll want to leave before sunrise." The sea gets opinionated. So you go. Back to the boat. Back to the dark water, where the waves lap with the same rhythm as a sleeping giant's breath. You hold the key tightly. It's warm. Or maybe you are. The compass no longer spins. It points clear and unwavering toward a single star above the horizon, and something in your bones tells you you're getting closer. You row through the night under that single stubborn star, and the sea feels different. Less like a body of water, more like a memory you're wading through. It doesn't splash, it sighs. Even the oars seem reluctant, as if they're worried about what you're heading toward. Morning arrives like a polite knock at the door. Soft, pink, hesitant. The horizon splits open to reveal an island that isn't on any map, which isn't surprising since your map recently turned into a drawing of a chicken wearing sandals. It's circular, unnaturally so, and crowned with crumbling columns. As you approach, you hear them before you see them. Voices, not speech exactly, just syllables floating in the air, repeating, overlapping, like a choir rehearsing in a dream. The island's shoreline is made entirely of smooth black stones, and as you step off the boat, they crunch beneath your sandals like brittle teeth. You walk up a spiraling path surrounded by olive trees, their trunks twisted into shapes, vaguely resembling letters. One of them looks like it's flipping you off in ancient Greek. At the top stands what's left of a temple. Columns broken, roof collapsed, but something about it hums with purpose. In the center, a mirrored pool, and beside it, a marble bust.
Of a head, life-size, eyes wide, mouth open as if caught mid-laugh or mid-scream.
It's been placed carefully on a stone plinth, surrounded by clay jars filled with dried herbs, feathers, and tiny bones. You know immediately, this is the oracle's missing piece. You circle it, heart thumping in rhythm with the island. It looks familiar, but not in the way a face does, more like how a story feels before it begins. You reach out, not to touch, but to listen. And that's when it begins. The reflection in the pool ripples, shifts, and instead of your face, you see a battlefield, spears, horses, bronze armor smeared with ash. Specifically, you see the Battle of Cheronea, 338 BCE. You know it's that battle because there's young Alexander the Great standing beside his father, Philip II, right before they turn the tide against the Greeks. But the weird part isn't that the vision is accurate. It's that Alexander's face is replaced with the head from the plinth, smooth, marble, mouth moving soundlessly. Then another shift. You see a Greek theatre, open air, where actors in saffron robes perform a tragedy, but every actor is wearing the oracle's face. Again, now it's the Library of Alexandria, mid-burning scrolls, crumbling like autumn leaves, and a robed woman shouting into the flames. You lean in closer. It's Hypatia, yes, but with the oracle's head. You're seeing echoes, says a voice behind you, and you turn to find a woman in russet robes, barefoot, standing like she's been there for hours. She doesn't flinch. Don't worry, the reflections don't bite. Well, not often. She's a historian, she tells you. Or she was. Now she's the keeper of the echo pool. Not a job you apply for, more like one that happens when you don't leave in time. You ask what this place
Is, she shrugs.
Some say it's the center of the labyrinth. Others call it the throat of prophecy. She points to the head. That shows up whenever someone gets close to finishing the loop, but no one has ever actually completed it. You ask what completing. The loop means, oh, nobody knows, she says cheerfully, but something definitely breaks when it happens. Casual, she offers you a drink, something thick and dark, tastes like cinnamon and lightning. Then she tells you about the last person who came here, a philosopher from Rhodes, believed he could make the head speak, spent 40 days reciting every known oracle's utterance, backward. You ask what happened to him. He turned into an amphora, she says, pointing at a large clay jar with eyes painted on it. You decide not to question it. You spend hours watching the pool. More historical scenes flicker across its surface. The building of the Parthenon, Plato, teaching under a fig tree, a very bored-looking Sappho flicking olive pits at her students. And always, that same marble head, observing, guiding, or haunting. Eventually, the historian says, it's time. For what? You ask? She smiles. To return it. You hesitate because returning a head to a body that's been wandering headless through time seems like something that should come with a warning label. But then again, so did that goat milk cheese you ate in Delphi, and here you still are. So you lift the head, it's lighter than it looks, you carry it down the spiral path, through the muttering olive trees, back to your boat, which is now covered in red poppies, probably fine. You sail back to the mainland under a sky that glows faintly violet. The sea is glass, the compass spins lazily like it's tired of having opinions. Eventually you arrive at the cove where you first found the statue. It's still there. Waiting, you approach. The villagers are gone this time, just you and the headless figure under a bleeding sunset. You lift the marble head, it hums. As it nears the neck, there's a moment of hesitation, like two magnets circling before clicking into place. Then, contact, the head seals itself to the shoulders with a soft, final sound like a candle being snuffed. The statue shudders, and then nothing, silence, until its eyes open and look at you. Not past you, not through you. At you, it smiles and says, "You're almost
hungry."
The statue's voice is low and silken, like a library whisper that knows too much. You flinch, naturally, because when a marble statue reattaches its own head and greets you like an old roommate, the correct reaction is never, "Ah, yes, this."
Again? You've done well, it says. But there's one last thing you must see. Of course there is. You don't even argue anymore. You just follow. It walks, not stiffly, but like it never forgot how. Graceful, deliberate, barefoot, over stone and sand.
You trail behind it as it leads you along the coastal path, the cliffs now gleaming in twilight. The air is perfumed with salt, rosemary, and just the faintest whiff of historical dread. Soon you reach a cave entrance, unremarkable at first glance until the statue raises a hand and the stones shift like theatre curtains being drawn aside. Inside is a winding tunnel, walls carved with ancient script that pulses faintly with light, as if breathing. You descend. Each step echoes deeper. Each breath feels borrowed. The tunnel opens into a vast subterranean chamber, a dome carved entirely from quartz. In the center, a massive stone table covered in relics, scrolls, weapons, amphorae, coins, all glowing softly, and on the far side, a mural spanning the entire curved wall. The painting shows a sprawling timeline of Greek myth, but out of order. Medusa picking figs with Heracles, Icarus sunbathing beside Odysseus, Athena hosting a poetry slam. It's chaos lovingly rendered. But at the center of the mural is the head, the same head, always. Sometimes it's an oracle, sometimes a general, sometimes a potter, sometimes just someone at a tavern in the background, listening. The statue joins you beside it. You're wondering what it means, it says. You're not the first to ask, it adds, but you may be the first to understand. Then it places a hand over your chest, and you see it. You see flashes of your journey, Delphi, the whispering pool, the shipwreck, the island of echoes, only now you're not in them. You're watching them, like chapters in a book you've read before, and in every memory tucked just out of view is the head watching you. You haven't been following the oracle, the statue says. You are the oracle. Hold up, you step back, blinking. It explains the head was severed not from a body, but from time. Scattered across history, appearing in moments of flux. Each encounter with it has pulled you closer to what it was meant to be. You were never just wandering. You were gathering yourself. Every prophecy needs a mouth, the statue says, but every truth needs ears brave enough to hear it. You ask what that means for you now. It gestures to the mural. You can stay here, keep the loop safe, guard the echoes, or you can return. Take everything you've learned back into the waking world. Tell it slant, tell it sideways, but tell it. You glance again at the mural, spotting new details, tiny gold flecks, shapes that weren't there before. Like a map reshuffling itself. There's one final item on the stone table, a small mask carved from ivory, plain except for a spiral etched into its brow. The statue nods. It's your voice if you want it. You take the mask. You don't put it on yet, but you feel its weight. Not heavy, just real. Then the statue closes its eyes, and with a sigh, like wind over ruins, it becomes stone again. Not a prison this time, a rest. You climb out of the chamber slowly, the tunnel dimming behind you, the entrance sealing like it was never there. Outside, dawn is blooming, pale pinks and cool blues, and for once, the sea looks still. You board, your boat, it knows the way. The journey back is quiet, no waves, no visions, just you, the mask, and a strange peace that hums in your bones. By the time you reach shore, the village is stirring. Bread ovens crackling, goats being unreasonable, fishermen yawning dramatically, and nobody remembers the statue, not even the shape of it. But as you pass, people glance at you like they almost do. You return to your room, curl beneath a linen sheet, and for the first time in what feels like centuries, you close your eyes with no questions left to ask. Except one, what comes next? And as that thought drifts outward like a ripple on calm water, your body begins to ease, shoulders softening, breath slowing, muscles letting go like the end of a long-held song. The sea still whispers, the head still wanders, and somewhere in the space between dream and story, you're already telling it all again. End of script. Sweet dreams.